This is Ronnie Shellist, blues harmonica player and musician. You're listening to the 25th Hour Radio Show with Rob and Randy.
The 25th Hour Radio Show. You're tuned into the 25th Hour Radio Show. I'm your host, Rob Fairless. On behalf of my co-host, Randy Ashby, we would like to welcome you to today's program. Today on the show, we have blues harmonica master Ronnie Shellist. Ronnie, how you doing?
Fantastic. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing great. Doing great, man. Thanks for being on our show.
Pleasure.
What drew you to blues music, and in particular, blues harp?
I'll tell you what. I got into the blues because I lived in an area that was a good hot spot. We had that whole 6th Street scene. If you've ever been to Austin, Texas, you know what 6th Street is. And for me, it was people like this guy. I'm telling you about Guy Forsythe, who, you know, there was just one night in particular. I was in a bar called Maggie Mae's, and I'll never forget. He was playing. No one was paying attention to what was going on. I might have been the only guy staring at the stage, and he was doing stuff with the harmonica sounds that I just couldn't get out of my head. I was just blown away that somebody could do that. I had never witnessed the power and the ability of that little tiny instrument until that night. So for me, it was kind of an overnight sort of like, it clicked. I was already into the blues, but then when I heard somebody really lay into it the right way, that was it. I was hooked.
So when you first was bitten, how much did you practice a day?
Ridiculous amounts. I probably spent sometimes all day, 7, 8 hours a day. 9, you know, just until I fell asleep with it in my mouth, which is dangerous. I can't recommend that for anybody.
So did that put a hamper on any like personal life you had?
I had no personal life, so it worked out really well.
So it's safe to say that Guy Forsythe is probably one of your most favorite musicians.
Well, he's certainly one of, he is. He's an all-around killer. If you're listening to this broadcast and you never heard of Guy Forsythe, look him up. He's a singer, guitar player, saw player, harmonica player, and he's the most charismatic individual you'll ever see on stage, as charismatic as they get. So it's safe to say that he was one of my biggest influences, and I certainly consider him one of my favorites.
And have you got to jam out with him before?
I have. He came through Denver a handful of years ago, and I got to tell him how much he's responsible for what he's gotten me into here, for better or for worse. And he called me up, and we played a bit on stage at a blues club here in Denver.
And how'd that go down? Was it?
Oh, it was fantastic. You know, it was definitely one of those things I had hoped to do in my lifetime, and be able to thank him and actually have the chance to jam with him. So it was pretty neat. You know, we had a good time.
Well, I don't want to change the subject or anything, but I definitely want to ask you this. And I've always wanted to ask a master blues player about this, especially one on the harp. Do you soak your harmonica in whiskey?
Not intentionally. You know what? There's a couple schools of thought about soaking them. The reason people would soak them is because when they start to go bad and they leak on you, if you drop them in a thing of whiskey, temporarily it would seal it up. The wood cone would seal up that harp back nice and tight and be airtight again. But nowadays you soak it in water and whiskey, and you're going to ruin it real quick. I wouldn't recommend it now.
So that's kind of a no-no, right?
It's a no-no unless you just got harps. You just want to drop at will, and you're not worried about them. If you need them to last you, no, I don't recommend that.
Well, let me ask you this. What's the longest amount of time that you have played the harp consecutively? I mean, nonstop on stage.
I have no idea. The longest consecutive time is just with or without bathroom breaks.
We're talking.
We know you brought it with you to the bathroom. That's the best place to practice, is it not?
No comment. No comment. You know what? I've probably sat up there and jammed a good 4-hour set of music without taking a break in a live performance situation. It's rare, but I've done it before. Yeah, you know, there comes a point where you kind of you start to go, you know, lose your mind a little bit. You need a little break. So,
have you ever teamed up with other blues harp players or talked with them on occasion, the famous ones throughout the United States or the world?
Sure. I've gotten a chance to become good friends with Kim Wilson. Kim and I met several years ago, and as I was traveling through a city, and just kept in touch with him. He's kind of a cool guy to check in with every once in a while. He's certainly, if you don't know who he is and you're in the blues harmonica, Kim Wilson's the king of modern blues harmonica. And a lot of guys out there just that are on the scene that you can probably think of. I've met pretty much most of those guys. And they're all really down to earth. There's very few of them that have, developed any sort of ego or anything. It's really refreshing.
Has your style of playing changed since the beginnings of your career?
Oh gosh, I hope so. I think it not as far as my influence and my flavor has never changed. I've always had an affinity for old school Chicago blues harmonica and then some of the country harp guys, but my style has evolved because I've listened to more and more types of music like jazz and Grant Green and some of the modern funk bands like Galactic. I love that kind of music. So over the years, it has certainly I've had a little bit of a modern approach to an old school, style, I guess.
Let me go back just a few minutes or a little bit. Do you remember your first live gig, and how was that experience?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a funny question or answer, or it's not a funny question. The first time I ever played live was not necessarily a gig. I didn't get paid, but I didn't know who he was at the time. I walked into a bar and ran right into Big Jack Johnson, who has since passed away, but he was a very well-known Mississippi blues, Delta blues man, and I didn't know who he was. I walked into the bar. I'd been playing like less than a year, and I said, "You got a blues band here tonight?" And he said, "Well, we sure do." And I said, "Well, who's playing?" He said, "I am." And I said, "Do you have a harp player?" I thought I was going to be able to listen to some blues harmonica. He said, "No, you play?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, tune up your harp, and I'll call you up later." And the first thought I had was, well, how the hell am I going to tune my harp? I never even knew I could tune a harmonica. And long story short, many tequila shots later, he didn't forget at the end of the night. My first experience playing live on stage was with Big Jack Johnson. And that absolutely was a huge turning point. Maybe not turning point, but was a very big push into what I want to do with the rest of my life, which was continue to play music and try to figure out a way to do it and make a living doing it.
What harmonica do you suggest beginners use? For somebody like me that, doesn't play harp. Rob actually does play harp, and he's far beyond anything I'd ever dream of being. But, at first I thought it was a phase because we always go through different things like karate and different stuff like that. But he really stuck with the harp, and he plays it all the time. And,
yeah.
And I know he's talked about you and a couple other guys that he's just infatuated with. So what would you, just goes on and on about different blues players. And of course, I have no idea what he's talking about because he's really delve into it. What would you suggest I play as a beginner?
I'd suggest you be careful not to get caught up in buying the $10, $15 harmonicas because that would be a disservice to you as a learner. But I also would caution you not to spend $120 on a customized one until it's like buying a Lamborghini when you first get your license, you really don't need that much of a vehicle. So I recommend any harp typically that falls between the price range of $25 and $45. So that leaves you with a whole bunch of harps. I guess I would recommend Suzuki Manji's a really nice one on the high end of that price range, and also the Special 20 by Homer is one of my favorite out-of-the-box harmonicas you can buy in the market. So there's two good suggestions for you.
Okay, I got another question for you. Plastic or wood?
Well, I don't mind playing. It's funny. That's a good question. The complaint you'll get, a lot of people will sort of put out there with wood, and I'm experiencing it. I had to go last minute, run into a music store to buy a harmonica before this gig, and I hadn't bought an out-of-box Marine band in years, so I went and grabbed one. That's what they had, and I start playing the gig, and I thought, man, this little sucker plays pretty good. And the one problem you got with a wood tone harp is there's certain tongue techniques that if the harmonica's not sealed really well, your tongue gets rough. It's like, it's like taking a nail file to your tongue. For me, it is. So plastic, you can't go wrong. In my opinion, the tone is still really good. Like a Special 20 has plastic cone. But if you're going to get a wood one, make sure it's one that's been sealed really well so that you don't have that problem with the wood.
Do you, after all these years of playing and practicing, do you still consider yourself being able to absorb and learn?
Every single day I learn something new, I would say. Every single day I push to find at least a different angle to the things that I am using myself. And the reason I have that advantage, maybe over an average harmonica player, is because I teach harmonica every day to people. So I'm constantly thinking outside of the box to explain things and to help people understand. And it's really made my playing, evolve in a way that I don't think it ever would have if I hadn't been a teacher.
When you're not playing or practicing, what's a typical day like for you? What do you do to relax? You got any hobbies?
I'm sorry. It's my life. And it's funny because to think about it, I never really think about it. I enjoy walking and getting outside. I've got a dog. I take a lot of walks and go to nature and do the hiking thing every now and again. But I'm not an extremely active guy like I used to be when I was younger. So, for me, I think honestly, music is still my relaxation. Like I'll put on some music, or I'll eat my wife's good cooking. But honestly, I don't have a lot of downtime that I spend doing many other things than that. Just quality time with my wife, my dog, sitting in front of the TV. That's it. But there's not much of that time these days. So,
what's some of your goals you got set for yourself for maybe like the next 5 years?
Well, the focus right now in my life, outside of live performances and touring with some of these workshops, I've teamed up with Adam Gusto, and we do some blues harmonica workshops around the U.S. Besides growing that and continuing to do those things over the next 5 years or so, my focus, the single one thing on my mind is these live online classes. I teach people how to play harmonica on the internet live 16 times a month, and they sign up for a subscription. So my goal in 5 years is to grow that subscription and my reach to new harmonica wannabes and enthusiasts out there, and that's really what I want to do with my time.
Well, that's a good segue, because I was going to ask you about your social media sites to plug some of those. So can you tell us a little bit about maybe your Facebook pages, Twitters, YouTubes, or anything like that?
Well, sure. My name is pretty much tagged with all of them. So youtube.com/Ronnie Shellist, Facebook.com/Ronnie Shellist, and then I've got my own websites, RonnieShellist.com and Harmonica123.com, which is my big instructional download /live online website for learning.
How about your new album, Till Then? What can people who haven't heard that, what can they expect if they buy it?
Just kind of a nice, fresh approach to modern approach to old school blues. It still has that dirty old electric kind of Chicago blues feel, but I've thrown in some modern songs and a couple acoustic songs that are really just kind of balances it out. But it's straight ahead blues. I mean, you hear everything from some swing to some funky stuff, some old school sounding country blues where it's just acoustic guitar and harmonica. You'll even hear some mandolin on the CD, blues mandolin. So it's fairly eclectic, but it's at the same time it's blues.
Ronnie, if you could describe what music means to you in one word only, what would it be?
That's how you put him on the spot.
Wow. One word only. To me, I guess religion.
Something you live for.
It is the belief. It constantly proves to me that my belief system is correct and that I have a reason to have purpose in life. It makes more, and on so many deep levels, music is love, joy, happiness. It's healing. It does all these miraculous things that, that I only get from music. I can't find anywhere else in my life. I often tell people the only time I have peace in my life is when that harmonica is in my mouth. And there's a lot of truth to that, because when I'm not playing, I got stuff in my brain that's weird going on with crazy ADD, and I got all these little things on my mind. We all got stuff in our brains, but when that harmonica's in my mouth, it's like the lights go out. I have nothing on my mind, and it's pretty blissful. So that's why I try to play as much as I can.
Well, Ronnie, we want to thank you for being a part of our broadcast, and we're almost out of time. This is usually the spot where I tell people to plug their social media or anything like that. But since we've already covered that, you got any shout-outs or anything like that you'd like to say on the air to anybody?
Oh, I'll give a shout-out to a musical friend, Greg Izor, in case he ever gets it. And if you don't know who he is, you guys check him out. He's one of my dearest friends and fellow harmonica players and musicians out there, Greg Izor from Austin, Texas.
Well, Ronnie, man, we thank you for being on our program. You're always welcome to come back again someday, and I hope you enjoyed your time here with us.
Hey, it was super fun. I'll talk to you guys soon.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.